Hello, everyone. This is Tammy Fisher within the Doll World, and I'm here today with my lovely co-host, Ms. Georgette Taylor. Hello,
Hey,
Ms. Georgette.
everybody.
Hello,
Hey, how are
Ms.
you?
Georgette.
So crazy.
And today we're excited to introduce you to Renata Jansen. She is an amazing doll
Yes.
artist. I can't wait to share her with you so that you can see her lovely work. So thank you, Renata, for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We're honored. So Renata, we're going to start where we start with everyone, and that is, please tell us your doll journey, where it began and how you ended up here with us today.
Okay. I think it was about, it must be about 12 or 13 years ago. It was 2004 when there was a tsunami in Thailand, and my daughter was really affected by it, and she wanted to make these charm bracelets for friendship bracelets for school. She's got her own business now, so she kind of likes to, she could see it even then. She wanted to get into selling things and sort of, but it was all for charity. And so we started making them, and then I thought, why don't I make some little faces? So I got really into making these little faces like charms to put on the bracelets. And then that sort of just led me on to thinking, well, what about, could I sculpt? And I thought I was coming up with this new idea. Sculpted a whole figure in polymer clay. So I went online, I was like Googling, and then I found the fairies of Ada Marie Roman. I think that's how you say her name. And I was like, oh my goodness, people actually do this. And so I got obsessed by it, and I was just watching. I went on the forum, I think it was called ODA, One of a Kind Doll Artists. I think it was called ODA forum, because in those days that was basically all there was. There wasn't like now. And there was lots of chatting, and I found out all I could about how to sculpt. And I did a lot of sculpting in my head because I didn't have any of the stuff yet. So and when you do that, you think to yourself, well, maybe I can do it, but I'm not sure if I really can, So the first time, eventually for my birthday, I got all the supplies and some clay. And I still remember starting out thinking, can I actually do this? And the first one was, I should have really sent you a picture of my first one.
You can send us a picture of it.
I can send,
you can send it.
I'd like to see the little bracelets that the two of you made too.
Okay, yeah, I'll see if I can find. Yeah, okay, cool. And the first bunch, obviously the first like probably 10, the faces were a bit like, at least it was a face, put it that way. But like, and somebody bought one of mine, and I'm so grateful to this day for this person for what they said, because they were honest. They said, it's very nice, but your noses are too big. And when you look at something every day and you're doing it, you don't realize. And it was only then I thought, you're right, they are too big. And so that, that I love, it's always been like, I'm so grateful for people to say things that maybe, you risk someone being offended. But those are the bits of treasure that you get, because it pushes you forward, Now, from then on, I was obsessed with making sure my noses were right, Yeah, so that was where I started, and I've just been obsessed since then. For a few years, I was obsessed with making eyes, because that was a thing, of making eyes that were clear. There was a mystery that needed to be solved, and I've spent months of hours on that.
Solving that mystery.
What did you make your eyes from? These mysterious eyes.
Eventually, after going, it was for a while. You just couldn't figure it out. But eventually, I decided to try using a crystal cabochon, which Swarovski. They made. Yeah, so they made these like domes that had silver. They were silver domes, so they were like for decorating. But if you soak these domes in, Google is a wonderful thing, I have to say, because I found how you can remove the backing. So you can soak it in like a mixture of, I think it's apple cider vinegar and salt, and you have to leave it for like 3 weeks. But it melted, like, it does something, I don't know. But when you take it out, the back comes off. So
Okay.
anyway, that's how I figured out how to get a clear dome shape. So
Okay.
so that's what I've been using since then. I just paint the back with glass paints, but which is, you know, first of all, you have to get the pupils the same size and the same shape. Well, that takes
Yes.
about 5 hours just to do one pair of eyes.
Wow.
But you know, it works in the end. It's fun. You have to enjoy this. Yeah, you really do.
Yeah, I would think you
Yeah.
do, because I'm sure
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
a lot of trial and error. It's like working, working. Oh, that's not work. You know, right? Okay, working, working. Okay, that's a little better. Okay, working, working. You know, and I'm
Yes.
sure as an artist, it's never perfect. That's just how we are
No.
anyway as humans. It's never
Yeah.
perfect. So you get it
Yeah.
as close to something that you appreciate in order
Yeah,
to make it happen. So I understand that.
That's a good point. Like for years, especially for years before now, I was, everyone that I finished, like the idea that I had in my head, would never come out as I imagined. It was so frustrating. And so for years and years, I would just be so frustrated with what I'd done. But over the time, I've kind of, I know I'm in a better place now because I'm not as frustrated with what I finished. I still don't want to keep it. You know, I'm still like, yeah, okay, you need to leave now. I've seen you for far too long. It's like a guest that's overstayed their welcome. It's like, no, you need to find a home now so I can, you know, because in my head, I'm already on the next one.
Right,
But like,
right.
I'm not as, I still wish, you know, this, it's still not like, I wish there will always be things that I wish I'd done better, but it's not as bad. It used to be painful. You know, at least
Wow.
I can't sell this. It's terrible. You know, I need to just start again. But my favorite time is when my desk is just clean, you know, and it's a new figure. I haven't messed it up yet. The idea is still in my head and I still think I can manage to do it.
But that's part of the human condition.
Yeah.
Where,
Yeah.
that you're with your imagination, you can, I mean, everything that exists started in someone's head. You think about that,
it's true.
all of the things that man has made started in our head. And so you can imagine things that the body cannot do, or you can't find the materials for. And we've seen that in like movies. You go back and you look at what happened with Star Wars.
Yeah.
Lucas could not do some
Yeah.
of those early movies because the technology did not exist. So we see that happening, you know, over and over. So I think that people understand that, especially as artists, you know, that
And also if you get to the point where you thought you'd done everything perfectly, how boring. What are you going to do then?
Yes.
So
Right.
I mean,
Are you done? Ta-da!
Yeah.
I finished
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I mean, I'm don't get me wrong, I'm glad I've moved on from that beginning bit. I'm much happier being where I'm now, but I still feel like, I suppose that's why I've sort of started to feel like I'd like to go like a larger scale and you know, sort of move a little, not that I for even a minute think that I have got anywhere near where I'd want to be with doing the smaller scale. I just feel like slightly larger, you know, there's so much more detail, you know, and I don't know, I just feel like maybe,
I mean, you get amazing detail out of the side. Now, what sizes are your dolls? You said larger scale, smaller scale. What scale is that
at the moment they're 10 inches. Or I work in 10 inches. Yeah. But I was thinking like moving on to sort of quite a lot bigger, sort of 50 centimeters or something. So quite a lot bigger. And I'm flicking around in measurements now, but yeah, bigger.
Bigger than 10 inches. That's what we need to know.
How many centimeters is that? I mean, how many inches is that?
Well, I mean, I'm gonna say for 10 inches, I'm telling you, you get amazing detail out of your work at 10 inches. I mean,
thank you.
I'm looking, they just for me. I just want to say, I think your artwork is amazing. It is so amazing. It really is. And the detail you get out of 10 inches, I can't even imagine what you could do with, 14, 16.
Thank you very, very much.
Because
Appreciate
10 is beautiful.
So are you saying you got a double or half more? Just a ballpark?
I would say, at least double. In fact, I did a head. I've sort of started by trying to sculpt a bigger head. And I think it's about 3.5 inches. So, and the heads that I do now are 1 inch. So it's quite a lot bigger.
So it's a lot bigger. So you're talking about triple the size.
Yeah.
Okay. I just went to
the heads are 1 inch, you said?
Yes, they're 1 inch now.
Yeah, you got lots of. It's
and the
amazing
eyes are like.
that you
I don't even know how you do that.
Yeah. A 1 inch head. Yeah.
Oh, with glasses and then headset. Yeah.
Your magnifying
and these keep
glass.
And every year I have to get new glasses because my eyes can't take the stress. And that is actually part of the reason as well, is the going bigger, you can hopefully save my eyes for a few years.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Your eyes.
That makes
I
a
can
lot of
understand
sense.
that. I know you said you started because your daughter wanted to make bracelets after she, saw this story about a tsunami. Were you into dolls before that? When you grew up, did you play with dolls or anything like that?
Yes, I loved dolls when I was younger, and had Barbie. No, actually, I didn't. I had Cindy. Cindy was the thing, and I always wanted the ballet Cindy. Eventually, I did get it, but it was a long time, and I really, really want, because she could point her toes, and So yes, I did always love dolls. And my gran was very, very special to me, and she always loved dolls, and she used to make the most amazing dolls clothes. So I always felt like maybe Gran was like looking down and staring me in the right direction, because I had never sculpted before. I'd always been into art. I was a textile designer before I did this, and that was part of the reason why I really got into this, because it was early 2000s when my job as a textile designer kind of disintegrated, because everything went very plain in fabrics, and the computer kind of took over with design. So the job just wasn't there anymore. And so I did sort of think, what am I going to do? And so for a year, I tried oil painting and sort of taught myself, in those days, there was no computers. Well, there was, but they weren't big. And so I got all the books out the library and sort of like learned about how to paint. And then that was when was when my daughter sort of kind of inadvertently led me into this. So I'd never sculpted before, but from the moment I started sculpting, I thought, this is more what I like doing. Like I actually think that if I had to choose between the two, I feel like sculpting comes more easily to me than painting does. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. All right. The other thing I wanted to know is that when you said you work with 10 inches, and since you started sculpting, why did you stay with that size? As far as when you decided to sculpt, why didn't you not create something that was a little bit bigger? Is 10 inches something that you were just comfortable with, or why didn't you move, to a different size later on?
I think that if I look back, I think that the reason I did the whole 10 inches, because as I say, I was in part of the forum of ODA, and that was the size. It was like, it's like what everybody was doing. So I sort of just stayed in that. But then I think if I look, I didn't consciously do it, but if I look back now, I think that I just spent a lot of years focusing on getting my sculpting better, sort of. I started to go outside of the one of a kind doll world. People generally, there is a basic way of sculpting with a ball of clay, how they start with the head and everything. But I started to look outside of that to find other ways to sculpt a head, instead of staying within the community of how everyone was doing it. I sort of tried to look towards sort of portrait sculptors, actual portrait sculptors who do life size and things like that. And so started to sculpt in a different way. So I think that I spent many years teaching myself learning how to sculpt a certain way. So I didn't really think out, that wasn't really important at that point. I just feel like lately that's become like something that seems a lot more. I'd never thought of doing a ball and joint or a soft body doll until recently. It's funny how that happens, isn't it? How something of it and it never feels like something you want to do, and then suddenly it does.
Yeah, I can totally understand that, especially like you said, because of everybody with the space that you were learning in. this is what they were
Yes.
doing. And so that's just exactly what you did. And then probably, like you said, got caught up in perfecting that size and being able to, paint that size. So yeah, it just kind of got all consumed with that, that particular way that you were doing things. So
I mean, I don't think I'd ever, I even now, the thing is, I'm a bit greedy because I want to do it all, really, because like I don't know that I'd ever want to stop doing these ones at this small scale altogether, because they have their own, like there's a part of that that's exciting, where you can create a whole world. You can do the whole, like at the moment I'm doing a fish pond, and sculpting the fish pond for the figure to be in. And it's just, there's so much you can do. It's just exciting. There's so much you can do. I can show you it, but I have to stretch to my desk and get it. But I can do that.
That's okay. We'd love to see it. Yeah,
okay,
that'd be great.
So at the moment, it needs resin. But I saw on YouTube, because YouTube's a wonderful place. And you see, you can do. So what I'm doing is a fish pond that's been cut through the middle. And it has this here now, because what I'm going to do is pour the resin in here. And this stays up against the side. And then when the resin's cured, you take that away. And it looks like you cut through the water. Well, that's the idea anyway.
Oh, okay. All right. Beautiful.
So that
is nice.
I
saw someone do that with a
oh, that's so cool.
They did an aquarium.
Little fish.
Yes, sculpted the fish inside. I mean, this one's supported by a piece of tissue, so that's going. But so I'm hoping. I mean, let's pray it works, because if it doesn't, the whole thing's a mess, because that resin is going to cure. But I did a bit of a test run first, so I'm
good.
I'm pretty confident. Yeah.
Okay, very good. You're gonna have a figure inside of it. Nice.
Yeah, sorry. The figure's going to be on this side here. So you see, there's a bit of an extra. And I want to do flowers and things as well, so it's got like more to it. But the figure's going to be sitting here and leaning across and feeding the fish.
Feeding the fish.
That's going to be beautiful.
Yes.
I hope so.
Yeah, great imagination.
Yes.
Yeah, that's nice.
I've seen her do her duet sculpts, and they're amazing. Having a sculpt against a painting, like they're part of the painting, and just everything is so
thank you.
It flows so beautifully.
Thank
I love
you.
your work. I really do.
I do too. Yeah. So I have a question for you. And so the doll world is very broad.
Yeah.
And you are on one of the closer to an edge, because I think that when people think of dolls, they think of dolls that are at least jointed at the shoulders and the head and the hips. And what you're doing they're solid figures.
The figurines, really,
Yes. But I'm not saying that they're not in the doll. I mean, I'm not saying no. Doll, but they're part of the doll world, and that's an interesting take too. So where does the doll world begin and end? And we keep saying, miniatures, and the doll world is just amazing. So it's cool to be speaking to someone who is doing dolls in a way that we don't traditionally see them as dolls.
Yeah,
because there's not the interactivity with moving them.
Yeah,
but they still are the doll form.
Yeah, the genesis of a doll, right?
I think I would say that they are. I've always called my work more sculptures, because I just think that they are more on the sculpture side than the doll. I think what makes them kind of leaning towards doll is the real hair. So they have the fibers for the hair. But I would say that if I had to describe them, I would say they're leaning probably more towards a sculpture or a figurine than a doll. But that's where I really want to change, and I love the idea of making clothes. I've never made clothes before, fabric. So I'm really keen to get into that side of things now. Yeah.
It sounds exciting. It's really exciting. It's always nice to talk to someone when they're on that edge of a transition.
Yes.
Oh, right. Yeah. I think I am so lucky that I have this outlet for creativity. Like I don't really worry about like my fashion or anything like it. All my kind of creativity goes into my work, and it's just it's such a gift, because you can just, you know, it's just it makes you so happy, and it's just so therapeutic, and you can just sit there and create, and yeah, it's just a wonderful gift to not, you know, not saying, oh, I'm so great, not that. It's more just being the feeling that it gives you, you know, no matter, it doesn't matter how good, you know, you're as good, you know, everybody's good to their own level, and I've got loads, very far to go, you know, where I'd like to be, and lots of people I look up to. It's just the way it makes you feel, wherever you are on the, you know.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, we're
totally
always
makes a lot of sense.
striving to do better, do something else. Yeah, so that makes a lot of sense what you're saying.
Yeah.
So because you are doing more sculptural things, where do you show? Do you show your pieces at doll shows, or?
No, I live in England, so there's not many doll shows here, and I don't like taking my work away, because it got lost one time when I took it away to a show I did go to on the way home. Some of them got lost, but I did find them again, but it was all a bit scary. So I maybe go to some in the future, but at the moment I don't. I have been selling them on eBay, but I do want to move away from that as well. So this convention is just amazing, because it is just like bringing you know, people together the way a doll show does, but it's all online. It's amazing. So yeah, I think in future I would like to do a lot more of that kind of thing, you know, where you're actually either in person or online, that kind of thing.
So you're talking about a virtual convention that you're about to do dolls for. Okay.
Yes.
No, I just wanted to make sure that our audience knows that's what you're talking about as a virtual convention.
It's the PD Mag virtual convention.
That's right.
Is that what it is?
Yes.
Right. So you're going to be showcasing your art there as well.
Yes.
Are you going to be doing any trainings, any classes, or anything like that?
At the moment, I'm filming a video of the making of one of my figures. So she's got swords, and I just need to do her hair and probably give her a cape or something like that.
Okay.
Oh, and I need to paint her base as well.
So when you do her hair and her cape, are they going to be fabric, or are they going to be also? Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Fiber for the hair, like it's viscose fiber. So, and then the cape is going to be fabric. Yes.
So
I have some other figures, actually. I don't know if you want me to show you. I've made this one. She will be in it as well. She's a bit bigger than the other ones that I've done, because she's a child. Yes, because she's a child, I was able to stay within the 10-inch but make her bigger, and it was so lovely to sculpt her face, because
beautiful face.
It's just so much bigger. Thank you.
Oh my goodness, gorgeous. She is gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
Such a great face she has.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, she's exquisite. What is her hair made from? Yeah.
It's viscose, and it's just back comb, so that it's just fluffs out. Yeah, it's just viscose fiber. Oh, thank you.
Her face is incredible.
Yeah, her face is
her coloring.
Yes.
Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, she's
wow.
Yeah.
And she's pointing at, you can't see it because she's got a big skirt on, but she's pointing her toes. But I wanted to make her look like she's, you know, a child pointing her toes, so it's not perfect. Let me just try and get her skirt. So she's doing a point as best she can, but she's a young child.
How old would you say she would be?
Sort
of 8,
maybe? Yeah, maybe 6, 7, 8. Yeah, something like that. Yeah. That's what I was going for anyway. Yeah.
Oh,
and then
so cute.
It's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. And then I just have this guy. He's got a long story as well. Sorry, I have to. He started out with huge wings, but I found I went all the way to actually listing him on eBay, and realized after the auction was already running that his wings were just they were very heavy, because they were huge. they went right down to the ground. They were massive. They came out like that.
Oh, wow.
Oh, that would be heavy to ship.
Yeah, but that wasn't really the biggest issue. Was when I turned them around, and normally when I package something that has wings on it, what I do is I cut out the foam to shape around the figure, and then I put foam here so that he leans. He would lean, but he would lean onto the foam, and so his body supported, and the wings kind of float in the hollow.
Right.
Okay.
But what I realized was that the wings were that big. I couldn't do that. So when I turned him like upside down, he was hovering above his wings, and I couldn't figure out a way to package him so that feels safe enough.
Get there safely, right?
Yeah. And my husband's very good at sort of doing quality control. And I asked him, and he just said, no, I don't know. And he's always usually good at that. So I thought, no, I'm not taking that chance. So I had to cut these wings off. So I had to get my Dremel and cut them off, and then build some smaller ones.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was quite a job, but we got
there. Yeah, that's also another beautiful
very
figure.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I love
so
it.
you're doing an angel series right now, because they're both angels.
No, do you know what? That wasn't even deliberate. Both of these figures I filmed months of hour-long tutorials through the whole making of the whole figures. So both of them, they both turned out to be angels. I don't know. It just ended up that way.
Okay.
I don't know. I got to the end and I just thought, yeah, these need wings. And so everyone just ended up getting wings.
That's cool. So before we started filming, we had a little discussion. And one of the things that you were talking about was the importance of shipping and how difficult it was for you to ship your items. So will you talk to us about that journey?
Okay, yes. No, in the beginning, I just would be sculpting and not thinking about how I was going to, and my husband is actually the practical one in this family. And he said to me, how are you going to ship that? And of course I hadn't thought of that. And some of them I even was selling, and then I was, get to the end. And I remember the first one that had to go international. The first few I got really lucky. They were posted within the country. So it was less horrifying. But then I had to think about how was I going to ship this thing to America, and I even tried to cancel the auction, but the lady was determined. She really wanted it. Anyway, I managed to try. I think with that one, I tried using batting and sort of wrapping the batting around the figure. Got there a little bit broken. So that was, and there's nothing worse. It's just so, it's just you really, that's the biggest part that you really, because you don't have any control over that part. That's the part that you worry about the most. And even now, I don't rest until I know that figure has got where it's supposed to go. Anyway, and so it was very upsetting. And I tried to ask people, how do other people do it? And I didn't get a lot of good feedback until finally someone did help me. And well, they made a tutorial, and I can't remember her name, and I feel really bad about that now because she was really saved me. But she showed how to cut the foam shape, and then you lay your figure in, but then tie it down. The biggest and most important thing is actually tying the figure down to the foam. Because what I felt was that if we don't share how to package these, then it kind of affects everybody, because polymer mustn't get a bad name of being something that can break. It doesn't. It's actually very sturdy if it's cured correctly first, and secondly, you ship it right. In 10 years now, I have had not, touch wood, have not had any breakage at all, and it is because you have to, I do have a video actually on my YouTube that shows how to do it, but you have to tie them down so that when there's any movement, because that box is going to get bashed and you can't control that part of it. So you have to just make sure that any knock doesn't hit the figure. So it's tied in the foam. But yes, it is very important that people know how to ship properly, because you do all that work and you put all of yourself into it, and then it's just as upsetting for the person who made it as for the person who receives it if it's broken.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense.
Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
Oh, no worries. The person who told me, it just made made the video of it and shared how they did it, was just such a gift, really, so helpful.
And that's great. And there's, I don't think many people realize this. There's a lot of competition, in the doll world. So there are like secrets that this person holds onto and they won't share with other people. And, and on this, by the same token, you've got people who are really open and share everything. So it's just interesting to see how, I guess I would say, how divided, because it's almost like, the black and white, very little in the middle and the gray. People are willing to help with everything, and people who hold everything to their chest. So it's just interesting. And
I've been on both sides. Sorry.
And I know that makes sense, because there are certain things, like if you developed a formula for the material that you use to make the dolls, your own kind of clay, you might not want to share that with anybody, because that's your clay. And so I'm sure that, like you said, there are things that you share, there are things that you don't share. And I think that's how it is. I will share this because this helps us all, and this is mine over here.
I think so. Although I think what I meant was, I think in the beginning, for many years I didn't. I was totally as well in the whole, keep everything to yourself. And then I got to a point where you realize it doesn't matter if you share, because nobody else can ever do what you're doing. What you're doing is you're sharing. They will always do it their own way. And when you share, if everybody shares, it gets better. Because sometimes often I've share something and someone will come up with an idea that is better than the idea that I was doing, or adds to it in some way. So that was the biggest. It was a mental shift that I had to make, where nobody's going to be able to ever take away what you do. What I think as well makes a difference is when you're doing this for a living, you feel you feel more vulnerable in a way. So I totally understand how people feel and why they maybe don't want to share or want to be as open. But when you finally get to that point where you realize that it doesn't matter, because that person is never going to do it the way you do it. They're going to take what you share, and they're going to make it their own, and they're going to make something that's totally different to what you do. And so I just got to a point where it just wasn't important anymore.
I think it's also like music, because I think that we have to remember that there are lots of people. There's room for everybody. It's not like there's just one person who sings in this genre. There's lots of people, and we can love and appreciate different people. We can collect dolls from. I do. I have a very eclectic collection, so we can collect dolls from all these different places, all these different people, and appreciate them. And I have from, the very teeny, limited, one of a kind, small number dolls to mass produced dolls. And it's they all speak to me in a different way. And so there's room there's somebody out there to love and appreciate all of your dolls.
Exactly.
And I think what you were saying was right, Renata, when you were saying that everybody brings something different to the table. So no matter, even if somebody was doing the same size dolls that you were doing, or the same size dolls that another creator was doing, it's still a different flavor. It's still a different flair. So it is something for everybody. I also know you did mention something about how if you are earning money from that, then you can understand how things can be a little bit more secretive. So we do usually ask the people that we interview if they are making a living doing what they do, because I think as an artist, most people don't want to be an artist because they get feedback from their either parents or relatives or friends saying, oh, I can't make any money doing this, and so they won't become an artist or a creator like that. So do you earn a living, to support yourself doing the kind of work that you do?
I would say that I always strive to make enough but I think it's quite hard. I think that making one of a kind has quite a ceiling on it too. I think it's difficult to make enough doing one of a kind because it takes so long. One figure takes me sort of 3 weeks at least, if not more, depending on the detail. And you're never going to be able to earn enough. So, that's working every day. Yeah. So I really think that now the way I'm thinking is you almost really need to get into sort of replica. It doesn't make sense not to, because you put all that work in. It's probably worth doing it more, being able to have it more than once. Whereas otherwise you're just putting all that work in to one, and then it's sold, and you have not, you start from scratch again. And if they sold for a lot of money, then it will be worth it, but it's not really like that. They do, I'm not saying I'm grateful for being able to sell them and do pretty well, but it's never going to be a big flourishing business working that way, because there's only one person and only one pair of hands. And because I imagine replicas, I'm obviously not tried it, but I imagine that's it makes more sense of how that can become something bigger. That where you can actually support yourself.
And there's the pros and cons of both.
Yes,
because we talk to people who want to do mass production, and their production doesn't have to be like crazy. The smaller the numbers are, the more expensive it is. Emilia Nieneman does, I think her runs are 30 dolls.
Right. Okay.
But what happens is with people who want to come into the doll world and they want to do some type of a mass production, they run into the whole thing about having the molds made, even if they're an artist and they know how to make the doll. They can sculpt it, so they're not paying anybody for that.
You still have to.
The upfront cost for the mold, for manufacturing, in order to get it replicated to what they call as like a master mold, right? Or a mold that they use to manufacture, all of these particular dolls that they want. So it's that upfront cost that is so so expensive.
Talk to people who spend tens and hundreds of thousands of dollars
making
dolls.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do they? Gosh, that I imagine that does eat into your profit.
Yes, it really does. And then what it does, sometimes it makes the cost of your doll a lot more expensive, because you really have to get back that money. And the other part of that is that you have to really be a marketing genius, because to try to sell them at a rate where what you've already invested is going to you're going to cover that. You have to be selling a whole lot of dolls. And a lot of the times, as a creator and as an artist, like that's where you spend the bulk of your time. You're not thinking about how I'm going to market, how I'm going to, do PR and promo for this. That's always the back end thought, when it really should be towards the front end, because
how am I going to sell these?
So, so it can be kind of frustrating. It really can. And I think Tammy's right that there's the pros and the cons, because we could talk to people like Raphael, who mentioned in her show that she earns money to sustain herself. My husband does have a job, and but so there are some people, like you said, that can sustain themselves with their art, and some people who have to find other ways to do that. So but we're always curious, because we do have a lot of people who would listen to the show who want to get into this, and who love art, and we want them to get the information honestly from the people who are out there doing that, whether it is they're not going to make money or they are going to make money, but at least they're honest, and the people can decide on their own if that's what they want to pursue. But so thank you for being honest with that. I appreciate
no worries.
that.
I think I probably, if I was to work, I did for a year. My husband was not happy in his job, and it was the best decision, but it was very difficult year, because I supported us. Well, mostly he did actually do a little bit of work on the side to help my daughter, but mostly I was doing it, and it was intense. It can be done, but you're working long hours and every day. because when you're not working, you're not earning. So you really, it becomes a little, it's difficult, because then it becomes that you're and where the love of it, you have to get that balance between like loving it and but I think you are so right about the marketing. That is one area that I haven't developed, and I realize now, looking back, that is something that should have been running alongside, parallel to my developing, and I didn't. And it's I would say that is the most important thing. I think that you can do anything if you can make anything a business if you do that side of it. And what I did was I thought, oh, I'm no good at that. But I've realized that everybody's no good at that. No one likes that part. You just have to do it. It's part of the job.
It's part of the job if you want to sell what it is that you're producing, And I just think that it only falls by the wayside is because when you're a creator or creative, that's just not in your wheelhouse most of the time. Your time is spent on these, creating this idea that you have in your head and this vision and getting it out and putting it on paper. So I understand that that's not part of the wheelhouse, but I think when people listen to the show and understand the process that people have to go through, I think it gives them opportunity to see that is part of something that they're going to have to learn. If they
definitely
want to get their product out, or either they got to find the money to pay somebody to help market that, because at the end of the day, that is part of you creating your product. You want to sell it and you want it to be seen. So
and these days
has to be learned.
For sure. But I actually still find I am trying to become more active on social media, because it's absolutely important, very, very important. Yes, I would agree.
And you were talking about when you were responsible for making the majority of the money for your family.
Yes.
How many dolls were you making then, and how many do you normally make?
Oh gosh, now? I think I was managing to make 2 a month.
Okay.
But that was that was when I started Patreon, and that has helped me massively, because that is like a site where at first it was I found it really awkward, because you have to talk on film, and my first few videos sounded terrible. But you get as you do it, you get used to having to hear your own voice while you're editing. It's awful. But
trust me.
Eventually, you just get numb to it, and whatever, it doesn't matter anymore. So I started. I'm very grateful for that. Actually, it was something that was daunting to me to do, but I've still got it running now, and I'm glad that helped me a lot. So that was one way that I was able to earn something more by not doing, there is the more work of, obviously you have to edit the films, but as long as you remember to put the camera on, which is also something I had to remember. But once I mastered actually making sure I had the camera on, then it's one other way of being able to do the same amount of work, but you're actually earning something more as well on the side by sort of filming. So I was doing 2 dolls, probably about 2 dolls, but that's pushing it for me. To do a doll in 2 weeks, it was quite intense. But usually, if I'm left to my own devices and I don't have to earn all the money, then I probably do 1 doll every 3 weeks, about. So it does take quite a long time. So
what is the longest process of that? What is when you say it takes amount of time, what is the longest portion of that time dedicated to?
Do you know, I probably is the heads, because I can take 3 days. There are people who do a head in 2 hours. I've never managed to do that. I sculpt the head in 3 days, and that's good for me. When I started, it used to take me a week to sculpt the head. So 3 days, I feel, is a good, I feel like I've achieved something.
So when you're saying you're sculpting the head, is it you're just sculpting it and you're not actually painting it then? So you're just
No.
creating the
Oh,
of it.
Yeah, 2 days. Yeah, no, actually that's including painting. So
Okay.
2 days to sculpt a head and then 1 day for painting. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I follow, like, I cannot sculpt. Some people sculpt out of their head. I can't do that. I use reference for everything. So it's quite a long process.
Okay.
I have my reference printed out at the scale that that I'm working with, and I also have the larger image on my computer, and so I'm just constantly going back and working into it. So that's why I end up taking so long.
Okay. Well, that's your process, and that's what works for you. So
yeah.
Yeah, I have a question about that too, because I'm wondering how your process differs from like the repainters. Repainters, they strip the face, and I know that you don't have to strip the face, but they strip the face down. They build the face up. So what they do is they do a layer of paint, whatever, pastels, whatever.
Yeah.
And then they spray it, and then they do another layer and spray it. Is that your process? What's your process?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, because I love watching those videos of the repainting dolls. Yeah. And oh gosh, I'd love to try that one day actually. What I use is Genesis heat set paint.
Okay.
So it's like an oil paint, but it you know how oil paint takes like 10 years to dry. It's not like that. It's you use heat. The heat will set it.
Oh, okay.
So I sort of work in layers. So I'll start with like just the shadows, and just the first layer of shadows, so just like hardly anything at all, and then dry that with a heat gun. Then go in with like a darker layer of shadow, and then start to work on like the eyes, and putting all the details on their eyes and everywhere like that. So that's how I do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
We hear a lot about that paint. That's one of the paints that a lot of the reborn people
Right.
use.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. And at the end, when I've painted it, I then put it in the oven, because people say, like, I think most people bake afterwards, because a heat gun does set the paint, but putting it in the oven for 20 minutes, just to bake it, it somehow really brings the color out and really sets the paint so that it's permanent. It's you don't get that. It looks slightly chalky, I feel, when you just use a embossing gun, on its own.
Okay, thank you. That just made me think about that process.
Yeah. No, I love that the repaints. They're amazing. And what I'd really like to try as well sometime is an airbrush. I think that looks like an amazing thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Airbrush would be really nice. But I'm sure that technique must be interesting, because the pressure that you have to use and not use is just that's a great art to learn now.
Yeah, I think it's like when you start using something, like, I know polymer clay quite well. I think I know it quite well. When I started, oh my goodness, it was so daunting, because you don't know it at all, and you don't know how long to bake something for. It's all quite. What you have to learn about polymer is sometimes, like I do as well, people bake in series, where say you won't sculpt the whole figure in one, because sometimes you can, but most times you don't, because you'll get, especially like complicated poses, you'll get to a certain point where if you carry on, you're going to mess up the bit you just did. If you can't really hold it in all the places, because everything's still raw. So what I often do is I'll sculpt to sort of the knees and the elbows, and then bake that, and then come back in with and sculpt the hands separately, and then add them on. And then so then the second bake will be the arms, the rest of the arms and legs. But what I found in the beginning, what I've had to really learn, is that say you put that figure in the oven, and you would say bake it for at the end I'd bake it for an hour, because that's what I've realized is the best amount of time for this size figure. You get used to things, you get really used to what works and what bakes up properly. But in the beginning, I had to get my head around the idea that when you say you've baked it for 40 minutes in the first bake, at the end, you can't go back and say, well, I've baked already for 40 minutes, so I'll take that off the time that the rest. You have to actually, even if you've just adjusted one thing, you have to put that figure back in and bake it for the full amount of time again. It's not cumulative.
Okay.
Which was something that you really I had to learn in the beginning, to make sure that your clay, because that's something is really important, is to make sure that your clay is very well baked, you know, because understanding what clay was, because when it's baked but not fully baked, you can scrape it back and it scrapes back a bit like soap, you know. It's quite easy. It resists a little bit, but it's quite easy to, you know, scrape into, which can be very useful when you get to the second, you know, when you sculpt in the second bit, because if you want to scrape something back, you can do it quite easily, because when the polymer clay is baked properly, it is hard and it peels like plastic. So that was something I had to really understand. So, you know, talking about getting used to your product, your material, and understanding it, yeah, it takes something. So an airbrush it will be like starting again, you know, learning something new. Yeah.
One of the people we interviewed who is in Britain, Julian
Yes.
Stanislaw Kalinowski, he airbrushes his dolls.
Oh, right. Okay.
So he might
I'll have
be.
To look him up.
Yeah. I don't know how. Where are you located?
So near Liverpool, near Manchester, Liverpool.
Yeah, that I will get you his information.
Oh, thank you. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Yeah. So, what do you have planned for? What do you plan on doing the next few years? What's that going to look like for you?
Yeah, so I've been thinking that I would really, really like to try a larger scale. And I've been trying to, for ages, I just wasn't sure how to do that, because when you've got such a solid chunk of polymer, if you go bigger, it's just going to get heavier, like I discovered with those wings, and it's just going to be clumsy. So eventually, I don't know, so I knew about soft dolls and I knew about ball and joint dolls, but I'd never really thought of actually doing them. And it's funny how when the time's right, you sort of are open to something and suddenly you start thinking about it. And so I've been thinking about, I think ball and joint's going to be a long time in the future, because like we've just been saying, I'm going to make a lot of mistakes. I'm fully prepared for a lot of mistakes. I'll probably make a bunch and realize they don't work properly, because with the ball and joint, it's not just the sculpting, isn't it? It's all the technical, you know, getting the joints right, getting the moving right, things like that. So what I thought, before I get to that stage, I thought I might try some soft body dolls, because you can sculpt the head and the hands and the feet, but you can sort of, and because it also then can get into trying to work more with fabrics, because I haven't done that and I'd really like to. So I think that's probably where I'll move on to, or at least try it. Yeah. And resin as well. I'd love to try some. I'd like to try, I don't know if I'm being too adventurous, I don't know, but I'd like to try casting myself and just see what I can do with that. And then the airbrush, I feel like maybe airbrushing that might be quite interesting. So there's a bunch of things I'd really like to try, but I've had to keep putting them off for a while, you know, because I need to focus on the show for now, but eventually down the line.
That sounds great. And one of the other things that you've spoken about that I'm not sure if you see it as a avenue, but you've talked about recording yourself as you're making your art.
Yes.
So
yes.
Is that something that you thought about doing, as releasing or?
Yes, I have a Patreon.
Tutorials? Okay.
Yes, I have Patreon, which I've been doing for quite a few years now. As I say, the little angel and the male angel are all on there, sort of filmed hours and hours, because you can imagine I'm very slow as it is, you know, and I filmed it all, so it's long. And there's hours of sort of just filming, tried to film everything I was doing and try to explain, you know, what I'm doing. So yes, I have that, which is it's nice because it's online, so you're not sort of, I mean, I wouldn't mind, I'd actually one day wouldn't mind doing in-person teaching, but at the moment this is just my way of doing it, is just online. So, you know, sort of, I guess in a way it's nice because it's open to everybody. You know,
yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. And more, and possibly since you are doing the teaching, maybe more teaching outside of the Patreon as a standalone, you know, opportunity for you to
Yes, yeah.
That would be good.
Yeah, it would be lovely to do like in person. Yeah, one day maybe. It's just my room is too small right now. I thought one day if I have to, I work in a conservatory, and I thought one day if I have to, you know, because conservatories don't really last forever. I think I need to make it bigger, so then I've got like an area that's like a teaching. That would be really great. That's also a long-term plan.
That's great. That's great. So this has been an amazing interview, and we've learned lots about you, and we're excited for.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, seeing
well,
more.
It's been lovely to talk to you. Lovely. Thank you.
Yes, and it's same way. We're honored. So if we have someone who wants to know how to reach out to you, or to join your Patreon or buy a doll, how do they reach out to you?
Well, I've got a Facebook page, Renata Jansen, or I've got a business page, which is Painting the Clouds.
Okay. And that's on Facebook?
That's on Facebook, yes.
Okay.
So yeah.
So thank you so very much for joining us. It's been amazing, and we would like to invite you back so that as you go on your journey and you try your bodies and your BJD.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah, we would love to take that journey with you.
Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. It's been wonderful to talk to you. Really great.
Wonderful speaking to you too. You take care.
Thank you. Thank you. You too. Thank you.
Thank you for being with us in the doll world, Renata. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, we really do.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.